few minutes to answer your questions. Okay? Postmodernism. The term indicates that what happened in literature, what happened in art, what happened in culture after modernism, that can be called postmodernism. Post means after. Postmodernism, that means after modernism. And this postmodernism emerged in the reaction to the established form of high modernism. That means whenever modernism flourished in the last half of 19th century, everyone was happy. Literature, philosopher, linguist, every person and the literary critic, they were happy with the ideals of modernism. If I ask you the question, what is modern? A smart one can be modern, is it? You will say, that means if you get the good dress up and something else, that can be called the modern. He is a modern man, yeah. But with the ideals of modernism, every critic was happy, but some critics were not happy with that modernism, and they came with the reaction towards modernism and came in the field of postmodernism. So postmodernism emerged in reaction to the established form of high modernism, which dominated university, the museum, the art, gallery network, architecture, film, music, etc. That the existing narratives means how you will see a literature, how you will see a novel, how you will see a character of a literature. That narration changed with the emerge of postmodernism. And existing narrative forms in literature and culture, and this course, as we have said, that includes 2 novels, 1 play, 1 short story, painting, performing art, and theories, through which students are exposed to the concept of postmodernism, cyberculture, dystopia, pastiche, and hyperreality. That means this can be the characteristics of postmodernism. That means cyberculture, dystopia, pastiche, and hyperreality. And we will also be watching how these very characteristics are related in those texts we are going to study in this course. Very simply, postmodernism is a reaction against modernism, and it has some characteristics. What are the characteristics? At the initial stage, we can get these characteristics, that is the cyberculture, dystopia, pastiche, and hyper-reality. So it's the time. Then if we want to pinpoint the idea of postmodernism, then we have to go to modernism. What is modernism then? Modernism is a style or movement in the arts. Arts, that means that I have said, that creative arts, novel, drama, short story, this fiction, everywhere. So modernism is a style or movement in the arts that aims to depart significantly from classical and traditional forms. In classical period, we have got some characteristics, that is, some components will be there. That means this will be the characteristics of writing poems, that would be the characteristics of epic hero, that would be the characteristics of tragic comedy, that would be the characteristics. So many classical period will go for some exact rules and regulation, just like that classical music. Classical music, you can go beyond the music that was established by the composers. Okay, that's classical music. Okay, classical drama, that means tragic hero. Okay, that means there is a part. Modernism revolt against these rules and regulation, and modernism came as a style to this classical and the traditional form. Traditional form in classical drama, just like uh, classical tragedy, if you say Oedipus complex, there you see that tragic hero will be there, and tragic hero will have some characteristics. What are the characteristics? Tragic hero will be a man of rank and position, and Oedipus is a king. So, and even if you go over there, in case of Shakespearean tragedy, we see that Hamlet is a prince. Okay, King Lear is the king. It means that there is a role. What is the role? The tragic hero will be the man of position and rank. But in case of Arthur Miller, Death of a Salesman, what happened? Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, it's a tragedy. But the tragic hero is like a common man, a salesman who sells commodities from door to door. Okay, that means modernism breaks away tradition and the classical form. That is modernism. And then we have seen that Arthur Miller, Death of a Salesman, a person who sells commodities from door to door, he has been the tragic hero. And by the post-war period, modernism had become part of art history. That means modern art, modern culture. So modern, everything was there. A movement towards modifying traditional belief in accordance with the modern ideas. And especially in the Roman Catholic Church in the late 19th and early 20th century can be called the time of modernism. In the late 19th and the early 20th centuries will be the period of modernism. And with the idea of modernism, everyone was happy. And that, why? Because modern literature, modern fiction, modern drama, they go with some tradition that breaks the tradition. That is modernism. Modernism was an early 20th century movement in literature, visual art, and performing art and music, and emphasized experimentation, abstract drama. That means one act play. In case of modern tragedy, you will have same. Is that the mobile phone? No. So, those who have come later, thank you. But from the next class, if you come later, I will be thanking you. I will be thankful to keep you out of the class. So, modernism, postmodernism is a reaction towards modernism. Now, those who came late, we are discussing about the tenets or characteristics of modernism. Modernism, that means that is the breaks the tradition, the classical norms. So modernism was an early 20th century movement in literature, visual arts, performing art, music, and that emphasized experimentation. As you see, that means in case of tragic hero, you see the tragic hero will be a man of position and rank. But in modern literature, we see the tragic hero has been a common man. Why? What is the logic? Logic is that with the sorrow, with the suffering of the king, that will raise pity and fear in the mind of the audience. The modern critic, they said, শুধুমাত্র রাজাদের দুঃখ বেদনাই কি মানুষের হৃদয়ে বেদনা সৃষ্টি করতে পারে? দ্যাট ইজ দ্য ক্যাথারসিস, যেটাকে আমরা বলি। ওকে, সো সেখানে বলা হলো যে নো, কমন ম্যানস সাফারিং ক্যান বি দ্য টেনিটস অফ audience's mental suffering, that is purgation, that is catharsis. So that experiment, abstraction, and the subjective experiment have become the tenets of modernism. Philosophy, politics, architecture, social issues were all aspects of this movement. So whenever in literature, whenever Romanticism came, So everywhere we have got the slogan that is fraternity, liberty, and equality. That was the concept of romantic literature. Again, we see that in case of romantic literature, we see love of past, love of imagination, and love of beauty. Love of beauty. Love of beauty. Okay. In case of romantic literature, we have said that very tenets will be there. That is love of imagination, love of beauty, love of past. That is the characteristics. Love of past, love of nature as well. Beauty is the aspects of the nature. Okay. So that would be the aspects of romantic literature. So whenever romantic literature came, everyone is happy with that romantic period. When classical period came, classical candidates made all people happy in writing literature. So whenever modernism came, philosophy, politics, architecture, social issues all were surrounded with modernism. And that modernism breaks the tradition. Again, another appeal of modernism is that modernism will get the time winning spirit. That means that is for always getting you updated. That is a avant-garde movement. Avant-garde, avant-garde. That means avant-garde. Avant-garde movement. That means Hamlet. Whenever Hamlet was talking about his dilemma, that is to be or not to be, that is the question. So that question came in the mind of Hamlet, and if you are in the position of Hamlet, this question will come to you as well. So we can say that spirit, that tendency is always in a person's mind. So Hamlet is equal to you, me, and everyone. So Hamlet will be modern. So Hamlet tendency will be modern, because Hamlet's appeal breaks the tradition. Hamlet had been studying at the University of Wittenberg. হঠাৎ করে উনি শুনলেন তার বাবাকে কিল করা হয়েছে। শুধু তাই না, উনি আসতে আসতেই শুনতে পেলেন যে তার বাবা তার চাচাকে, কিং ক্লডিয়াসকে বিয়ে করেছেন। উইদিন তার মা তার চাচাকে বিয়ে করেছেন within the very short time. Short time means in every religion there is a time period that wife should stay some moments after the killing or death of a husband. But in case of the situation, we didn't find that. Okay, so Hamlet's position was that. So that appeal will be there in literature. So when modernism came, philosophy, politics, architecture, and social issues all surrounded with the appeal of postmodernism. So that is modernism. So modernism centered around the belief in a growing alienation from prevailing morality, optimism, and conventions. So modernism breaks the conventions. Modernism breaks the established roles. Modernism breaks the art form that was the traditional. So modernism pushed away all traditional and old forms of art and architecture. That is and a desire to change now. Human beings in a society interact and live together. So that was the appeal of modernism. Everyone was trying to see with the concept of modernism in literature, art, painting, architecture, everywhere. So modernist movement emerged during the late 19th century in a response of significant changes in the Western culture, including secularization, the growing influence of science. It is characterized by self-conscious rejection of the tradition. Okay, that means the traditional rules and regulations were pushed away by the ideals of modernism. That means we will be modern, so we will not follow any traditional dress. Okay, the people started wearing pant. That pant was upside tight and the lower side is loose. Why? What is the logic? Logic is that this is the tradition that always you will be wearing pant like this shape. So that was the tradition. So pushing away the traditional belief, everyone started to follow a new tradition, new one, new avant-garde. Oh, that is modernism. And that is the self-conscious rejection of tradition and the search for newer means of cultural expression. Newer means, always they were trying to have the new one. What is the logic? They don't know. But they try to have the new one, new expression in literature, new expression in music, new expression in art, architecture, culture, social culture, everywhere. Okay? That is modernism. So modernism was influenced by widespread technological innovation as well, okay? And industrialization, and also urbanization, as well as the cultural and the geographical shift that occurred after First World War. Okay? After the First World War, there was an economic boom. Everyone started to hanker after money. Then money became the most important thing. Okay? There was no relation. That means if anybody asks someone else that what you will be doing, then no, I will be talking to you if I will have some benefit. So the relation, everything became in terms of benefits, and that was created for the cause of industrialization, urbanization. Okay, so that was the tenets of, and that was created after First World War. আপনি এখানে দেখতে পারেন artistic movement and the techniques associated with the modernism. Okay, so the artistic movements and the techniques associated with modernism includes abstract art, literary stream of consciousness, cinematic montage, musical atonality. Atonality means there is no tone. There is modern music sounds like that is there is no music. Music will be there. গান হচ্ছে বাট সেখানে কোনো স্বর নাই, হ্যাঁ, দ্যাট ইজ অ্যাটোনালিটি। কেন অ্যাটোনালিটি? কেন? বিকজ টোন ওয়াজ সেট বাই ক্লাসিক্যাল রুলস অ্যান্ড রেগুলেশন, বাট ইন মডার্ন টাইমস there will be no tone, there will be no music. What you will say, that would be the modern. Okay, there is no basic up. So that is atonality. And 12th tonality, that is another definition of such kind of modernism. Modern dance will not go for any type of rules and regulation. What you will do, that would be the dance. That is the modern dance. And modernist architecture as well. Okay, modernist architecture, that means, as I have said, that modernism will break away the tradition and they will try to get a new one, a new concept. Okay, that is the aspect of modernism and urban planning. And modernism took a critical stance towards the Enlightenment, and instead of being enlightened concept of rationalism, the movement also rejected the concept of absolute originality, the idea of creatio ex nihilo, that means creation out of nothing. You are doing something, you are creating something out of, what is the theme, what is the motive? That is out of nothing. Okay, upheld in the 19th century by both realism and romanticism, replacing it with the technique of collage, reprise, incorporation, rewriting, recapitulation, revision, parody. All are the characteristics of modernism. Another features of modernism was reflexive, not constant, something that would be not in a regular shape, that would be like hotspot without any rules, regulation and tradition. And debate about the timeline of modernism continues, with some scholars arguing that it evolved in the late modernism and high modernism, and postmodernism meanwhile rejects many of the principles of modernism. As I have said, the term postmodernism indicates that after modernism, what happened in literature, art, culture, that can be postmodernism. Okay. Postmodernism rejects many of the principles of modernism. What does it mean? It means that we have got some characteristics of modernism. What are the modernism? That means modernism will not go for any rules, any tradition. In case of music, in case of dance, in case of printing, always the newer expression will be there. And that newer expression became the characteristics of modernism. But after modernism, postmodernism rejects many of the modernist principles and ideals. That is postmodernism. So what is postmodernism then? A late 20th century style and concept is the art, architecture, criticism, which represent a departure from the modernism. Excuse me, all things I will be giving you in your so postmodernism, with the term we have learned that postmodernism after modernism. But if you want to write the definition, that postmodernism is a late 20th century style and concept in the arts, architecture. Art means the creative art, that means novel, poetry, drama, music, art, everywhere. Art, architecture and criticism as well, and which represent a departure. Departure means bye-bye bole dawa. Kake bye-bye bole diচ্ছে? Modernism কে. যখন modernism এসেছিল সবাই ভাবছিল যে আমরা we will be the modern man, we will have modern music, we will have modern dress, we will have modern art, we will have modern building. But whenever postmodernism came, everyone said bye-bye to modernism. And it was a late 20th century and is characterized by the self-conscious use of earlier style and convention. Modernism কি করেছিল? আগে সমস্ত rules and regulation কে বাদ দিয়ে দিয়েছে. Postmodernism revives the self-conscious use of the earlier styles and convention, a mixing of different artistic styles. In case of postmodernism, we have seen that no tradition will be there, no rules and regulation will be there. But in case of postmodernism, we have seen the self-conscious mixing of the previous art, style, architecture everywhere, and style and medium, and the general discourse of theories. So several established theories will be there. So postmodernism started asking questions about the ideals of modernism and also started something new again. তাহলে মডার্নিজমও নতুন কিছু খুঁজছিল, postmodernismও নতুন কিছু খুঁজছিল. So what was the difference then? What is the difference then? Modernism always gives something new. Postmodernism also seeks new. So what is the difference? আপনারা বলবেন যে একটা হলো late 20th century, একটা হলো late 19th century. Yeah, but early 20th century, that is the time period, that is also the definition. But modernism requires new establishment, postmodernism requires newer. So if modernism becomes upward movement, upward মানে কি সব সময় এগিয়ে থাকা, forwarding, keep you upward, to update it, So modernism requires you to be updated. That is the avant-garde movement, and postmodernism is a new avant-garde thing in terms of style, artistic style, media, dance, and other things. One of the characteristics, that is the cyber culture. In modernism, you will see cyber culture. What is it? Okay. Cyber culture, the social condition brought about by the widespread use of the computer networks. Okay. Cyber culture, that means the cultural setting in everywhere, whenever আমরা সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া কখন পেলাম? ফেসবুক কবে যাত্রা শুরু করলো? 2004। তারপরে আস্তে আস্তে আমরা কি পেলাম? ইউটিউব পেলাম, তারপরে ইনস্টাগ্রাম, তারপরে টুইটার। এখন টুইটারের নাম চেঞ্জ হয়ে গিয়েছে, এক্স হ্যান্ডেল। আপনারা হয়তো মনে করছেন যে 4 বন্ধু একসঙ্গে আড্ডা দিতে গিয়েছেন, 4 জন একত্র হলেন, 4 জনেরই চোখ কোথায়? বন্ধুর মুখে না, তাদের চোখ কোথায়? সবারই হচ্ছে ফোনে। Okay, that is the cyber culture. So I have got some information that কেউ আমাকে বলেছিল। Yes. কয়েকজন বন্ধু আড্ডা দিল, কিন্তু যখন দেখলো যে আড্ডা দিতে এসেই সবাই একটু হাই হ্যালো বলেই কি করে, সবাই মোবাইল দেখা শুরু করে। এই জন্য তারা ডিসিশন নিল যে কি, যখন তারা একত্রে হবে সবার মোবাইল বন্ধ করে কোথায় রাখবে। তো আগের যে কালচারটা ছিল, সেই কালচারটা ছিল সোশ্যাল কালচার, সোশ্যালাইজেশন, ওকে, গ্যাদারিং, ওকে, বন্ধুদের সাথে আড্ডা দেওয়া, ওকে, বাট দ্যাট ওয়াজ অল done in terms of cyber culture. What is that? Cyber culture is a social condition brought about by the widespread use of computer networks and communication, entertainment and business. How many times? Once upon a time there are many cinema halls in Bangladesh. But no, at present there is no. Why? Because you are getting that kind of entertainment through internet.
Sir, এখন তো প্রত্যেকটা বাড়িতে সিনেমা হল।
Yes, in everywhere. So that is called the cyber culture. এখন বাড়ছে কিছু বসুন্ধরা কমপ্লেক্স, কিছু কিছু জায়গায় যে কিছু কিছু সিনেমা হল আছে, but the number is less, is it? But that entertainment and also the business, ফুড পান্ডা থেকে শুরু করে সব কিছু, আপনি কি পিক অ্যান্ড ড্রপ, কি আপনি পারচেস করতে পারবেন না, সব কিছুই এখন বিজনেস আপনারা কি করতে পারছেন, ফেসবুকে করতে পারছেন, সব জায়গায় বলছেন। এটা কেন বলেছে? দিস ইজ ফর দ্য কজ অফ সাইবার কালচার। দ্যাট মিনস আ সোসাইটি, বিজনেস, এন্টারটেইনমেন্ট, চ্যাটিং, লার্নিং, education, online education, everything is controlled by tips, also health tips. Okay? All things are controlled by internet networks and computer. That is called cyber culture. Our lives are influenced by the cyber culture. The meaning of cyber culture is a set of shared attitude and practices and goals associated with the words of computers and the computer. Okay, so, and in postmodern period, the cyber culture is a result of postmodern characteristics and the postmodern principles. Whenever entertainment, education, business, tourism, health tips, everything you can get from the internets and computer. Another concept is dystopia. Dystopia, that means utopia. Utopia is a concept of a state. There will be no bad thing. Ideal state. There will be no bad thing or evil. That is called utopia. And dystopia, bad utopia. Bad utopia. An imagined state of the society in which there is great suffering or injustice, typically that one that is totalitarian and post-apocalyptic. মহাবিপদের পরবর্তী। That means Whenever in a society you will see that industrialization is there, okay, everyone is getting money, the relation, the everywhere money making tendency will be there, no humanitarian aspects will be there, okay. So if we get some help on someone else, nobody will come. If you see that in a road there is an accident, অনেক, কিন্তু এখানে অ্যাক্সিডেন্টে আপনাকে হাসপাতালে নেবে এরকম সময় কারণেই কেন নেই? কারণ কেউ যাচ্ছে অফিসে, কেউ যাচ্ছে হচ্ছে ব্যবসা প্রতিষ্ঠান, কেউ যাচ্ছে অন্য কোনো কাজে, যারই কোনো কাজ নেই কেন এই সমাজে। বাট once upon a time we had that kind of society that if anybody would fall in danger, many people will come forward to help you in case of accident. But at present it's not like that, and that indicates that is called totalitarian. Totalitarian, that means terms, relation, literature, everywhere that would be evaluated by money, money, and also so in such a totalitarian society, injustice will be there, and the great suffering of the common people will be there, and that society is called dystopia. So the environmental disaster is one of the effect of such kind of dystopia. That means if you visit Cox's Bazar, there you will see, if you visit St. Martin, if you see that so many bottles of plastic bottle will be there. Who did that? We people did this. Okay. So that is the effect of the culture. Environmental disaster is the backdrop of this modern dystopia. A very bad and unfair society in which there is lot of suffering, especially an imaginary society in future after something terrible has happened. Actually, this society has not come. Okay. Postmoderns thinker, they said that after some times the society will society of dystopia. That means dystopia is an imagined society where injustice, suffering will be there. That means one example, that is environmental disaster, can also be জাপানে কয়েকদিন ধরে কয়েক হাজার বার নাকি হচ্ছে ভূমিকম্প অনুভূত হচ্ছে। দ্যাট ইজ দ্য এনভায়রনমেন্টাল ডিজাস্টার। ওকে, হয়তোবা জাপানের ভূমিকম্পের কারণে তারা কোনো ক্ষতি করেছে কিনা জানা নেই, বাট ইন দ্য লং টার্ম হয়তো জাপানের পপুলেশন বা অন্য কোনো কারণে, বা এটা বিভিন্ন প্লেট থাকে বিভিন্ন কারণে। সো ডিস্টোপিয়া ইজ অ্যান ইমাজিনড স্টেট অর সোসাইটি where there will be injustice and the suffering for the common people. That indicates dystopia. Another characteristics of that is pastiche. Pastiche. Pastiche is an artistic word in a style that imitates that of the another work or artist. You have got the idea of fusion, isn't it? Fusion, but that means wording will be previous. গানের কথাটা কিসের আগে, এটা হলো ফিউশন রিমেক। ওকে, কথা আগে আছে, তার সাথে কি করা হচ্ছে, অনেক কিছু মিউজিক, অনেক কিছু বাদ্যযন্ত্র তৈরি করে একটা ফিউশন, একটা মিউজিক তৈরি করা হচ্ছে, কিন্তু কথাটা আগের। সো pastiche is an artistic work in a style that imitates that of another work. অন্য একজনের কাজ, সেটা কি হতে পারে, সেটা গান হতে পারে, সেটা কবিতা হতে পারে, সেটা আর্ট হতে পারে, বিভিন্ন ধরনের কাজ যেটা আগে করা হয়েছে সেটার অনুকরণ করে আরেকটা আর্ট তৈরি করা, কবিতা লেখা অথবা গান, যেটা বললাম রিমিক্স মিউজিক। So pastiche is an artistic work in a style that imitates that of another work, artist or figure. Operetta is a pastiche of the 18th century style. So operetta is a form musical যেটা অপারেটা মানে থিয়েটারের হতে একটা ফর্ম, সেটা নকল করা হয়েছে কাকে, 18th century একটা স্টাইল। So that is called pastiche. And imitation, in that case imitation, parody will be there, mixture will be there. Mixture can also be called fusion. Mixture will be called fusion. Mixture will be called fusion, and blending will be there. Blending means এখান থেকে একটা নেওয়া, ওখান থেকে একটা নেওয়া, সবগুলোই এক জায়গায় করে একটা নতুন ফর্ম তৈরি করা, সেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে ব্লেন্ডিং। সো ব্লেন্ডিং, imitation, parody, these are called pastiche, and that is the characteristics of post-modern art or creations. Okay? And pastiche of literary models or sources, late 19th century form of French from Italian pasticcio, based on the late Latin pasta or past. সো এই ওয়ার্ডটা কোথা থেকে এসছে? এই যে ল্যাটিন ফর্ম থেকে, ইটালিয়ানো ফর্ম থেকে, সেখান থেকে এই টার্মটা এসেছে। ওকে, দ্য প্যাস্টিস। অ্যানাদার ওয়ান,
হাইপার
লেট 19th সেঞ্চুরি ফ্রম ফ্রেঞ্চ, ফ্রম ইটালিয়ান, এই ওয়ার্ডটা আছে। এই টোটো ওয়ার্ডটার নাম হলো প্যাস্টিসিও। সিও হয়তো ইটালিয়ানরা অন্য কিছু উচ্চারণ করতে পারে, আমরা এইভাবে উচ্চারণ করি, প্যাস্টিসিও। অ্যান্ড বেসড অন দ্য লেট ল্যাটিন, তার মানে এই যে প্যাস্টিসিও ওয়ার্ডটা ফ্রেঞ্চ, ফ্রম ইটালিয়ান, সেই ওয়ার্ডটা হলো প্যাস্টিসিও। তারপরে এসে ল্যাটিন আরেকটা ওয়ার্ড সেখানে আছে, সেটা হলো কি? পাস্তা। পাস্তা ইন্ডিকেটস পাস্ট, PAST, এখানে হলো পাস্ট, যেই পাস্ট হলো অতীত, এরকম ইন্ডিকেটস। তার মানে এটা দুটো, তার মানে প্যাস্টিস ইজ ডিরাইভড ফ্রম ফ্রেঞ্চ ওয়ার্ডস or Italian word pasticcio and another Latin word pasta. That indicates imitation, parody, blending, mixture, everything will be there. Cannot, because they have desired to have a new one, the newer one in music or in. কেন এই প্যাস্টিস করার প্রয়োজন হলো, পাস্তা করার প্রয়োজন হলো? That means that indication, as I have said, modernism is a new movement and postmodernism is a newer movement. But postmodernism pushed away several ideas of modernism, but in postmodernism, with the ideas of cyberculture, with the ideas of hyperreality, with the ideas of pastiche, they were trying to have a newer culture and newer form in art, culture, literature, painting, architecture, design, everywhere in the social phenomena. That is postmodernism. Another thing in postmodernism, that is the hyperreality. Hyperreality is a concept developed by, এখানে কিছু কিছু জায়গায় উচ্চারণটা হলো জ বদ্রিয়ার, জ জ, যেহেতু হচ্ছে উনি ফ্রেঞ্চ, জ জ বদ্রিলাট, বাট কিছু কিছু জায়গায় আবার উচ্চারণ হচ্ছে জ বদ্রি আর। সো আপনারা দুটোই বলতে পারেন, যেটা যাই বলেন না কেন বানানটা ঠিক লাগতে হবে। So that hyperreality is a concept developed by John Baudrillard. হয়তো বাংলাদেশে বদ্রি আর বললে হয়তো এটা বলবে যে না, এটা বদ, সো আমাদের এটাই উচ্চারণ করা সেফ হবে, বদ্রিলাট, বদ্রি বদ্রিলাট। Okay, so hyperreality, a concept developed by John Baudrillard, a French socialist and philosopher with an interest in cultural studies, and he is best known for his analysis of media and contemporary culture. That is the French philosopher and sociologist John Baudrillard. Okay, and describes a condition where the distinction between reality and simulation. There are several cartoons. Have you heard the name of Peppa Pig? Peppa Pig? Peppa Pig cartoon? No? Peppa Pig. Another arrow, seven cartoon. Tom and Jerry. এমন একটা আরো কিছু অনেক কার্টুন আছে যেমন যে মোটু পাতলু, ডোরেমন। So this cartoon, Meena cartoon. So this cartoon imitates the reality. মিনা কার্টুনের মিনাকে কখনো এমন ভাবে উপস্থাপন করে ওকে দেখে মনে হয় যে মিনা বলতে কি এর একটা ইমেজ আপনার এই মাথায় চলে আসে। তাহলে অরিজিনাল মিনাটা কি? Exactly, and that is hyper reality. In case of hyper reality, there will be no difference between original and simulation. Okay, original and simulation, and the reality, the distinction between reality and simulation becomes blurred, fabricated. Representation are perceived as more real than the actual reality. আসলে মিনা কার্টুনের মিনা এই কার্টুনে মিনাকে যে তৈরি করেছে কাউকে তো লক্ষ্য করে মিনার শেপটা দেওয়া হয়েছে, তাই না? মিনার যেরকম চুল, তার যেরকম হাইট, তার মানে অ্যাকচুয়াল মিনা তো কোথাও আছে। যখন কার্টুনিস্ট বানাইছে তখন তো তার মানে একটা ছিল যে এইরকমের একটা এরকম হবে মিনা, কিন্তু পরবর্তীতে মিনা দেখার পরে সেটা কি আমাদের অরিজিনাল যে মিনা সেটা আমাদের কারো মাথায় নাই। Okay, that means the representation perceived as more real than actual reality. That is the hyper reality, and it essentially refers to a state where the real is replaced or overshadowed by simulations, and particularly within technologically advanced and postmodern societies. So, hyperreality in postmodern period, you will also see such kind of characteristics. That is, hyperreality is a concept developed by Jean Baudrillard, and that is the described a condition where there is no difference between original and simulation. Okay. So, and the key aspects of the hyperreality erases the boundary between what is real and what is simulated. Making it difficult to distinguish between the two. Simulation replacing reality instead of reality being the foundation of or simulation. Representation become the primary source of experience and meaning. Perception of over reality, that would be the concept of that is the theme park. At present you see there are several theme park, Disneyland, and in Bangladesh অনেক theme park হয়েছে, মুন্সিগঞ্জে কোথায় যেন theme park হয়েছে, Waterland. So Disneyland or Universal Studios where create immersive or technologically designed environment that can feel more captivating than everyday life. That is the hyper reality. Okay, and this course in there will be the title of our course were Postmodernism in creative art, literature, painting. So we have seen the characteristics. At the same time, it attends to question the racism, multiculturalism, gender, and the politics of media will be there. Another term is cyberpunk. And a genre of the science fiction set in the lawless subculture of an oppressive society dominated by computer technology. Cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction set in a dystopian future, and it is characterized by its focus on the combination of low life and high technology or high tech. Okay, that is the cyber culture. So there will be the course objectives and others will be there. You will be reading in your from your novel. Okay, so we can conclude in such a way that modernism emerges in the late 19th century. That indicates that modernism indicates that all traditional and classical roles will not be there. Okay, there will be the new style, new forms in art, literature, architecture, painting, everywhere. Okay? And after postmodernism, many critics started asking questions against modernism, and we have got a term that is postmodernism. And in this postmodernism, in literature, art, painting, architecture, dance, music, we see several perspectives like dystopia, cyberculture, okay, some other hyper-reality will be there. Why? Because modernism requires new movement and postmodernism requires newer movement. So if modernism becomes avant-garde movement, postmodernism will be new avant-garde in literature, painting, architecture, music, etc. Any questions?
Yes, sir.